Hey, welcome to Bantha Fodder, episode 5. We made it all the way to episode 5. You know what they say, my co-host Jacob Tender?
What do they say, Mike?
They say that episode 5 is the best.
Is that what they say?
I don't know. I mean, that's what I've heard in the past. That's
About our show or any show?
About any Star Wars thing. Anything ever related to Star Wars, episode 5 is the best.
I'll roll with it.
We're rolling with it. Roll with it. Okay?
Okay, roll with it.
Anyway, welcome to Bantha Fodder, episode 5. Jacob Tender, thank you for joining me on this lovely Wednesday evening.
So what's new, Mike?
I either pulled a muscle in my back or I'm passing a kidney stone right now, so that's what's new in my life.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out. I'll update you next episode whether something awful came out of my body or whether it just got better by itself.
Or if I hop on our scheduled Skype call and you're not there, I'll just assume the worst.
Yeah, look for my obit next week.
Send your applications for co-host of Bantha Fodder to banthafodderfm@gmail.com.
It doesn't seem like it, but it's been a really big week for Star Wars, or like a momentous week, I guess, for the main reason of Episode 8 going into production.
Yeah, did you watch that teaser video?
I caught it out of the corner of my eye. A friend had it displayed on their device, and I saw it, and I was very confused, and immediately I started grilling them. They were very taken aback by how quickly I started questioning them, because I couldn't hear the audio. I was like, what is that? What is that? Is that a picture? Is that from when they wrapped episode 7, or is that what they're starting off the movie with? What are they doing right now? I was very concerned and had a lot of questions. Do you have any answers to my questions, Jacob?
Oh, I don't have any answers, but I don't like that teaser for the simple fact that, obviously they're shooting in a different... It seemed to me that they were shooting in a different location. I'm not sure if that's the case, but they were definitely shooting during a different time of the day. So unless Luke made Rey hold out her lightsaber for, hours upon hours as the first test of her Jedi training, I don't know what's going on there. And I also don't like all this talk that's going on that they plan on starting Episode 8 exactly where Episode 7 left off.
That was exactly what my concern was when I saw it. I was just like, wait a second, they're not going to just open right up on that last shot again. That would be totally uncharacteristic of...
It would. They've never done that in Star Wars. I think one of the best things about Star Wars is that each movie takes place, some amount of time after the one before it. Not necessarily years, but at least some time has passed, and in that there are holes, and that's where the fun in talking about Star Wars kind of lies for me. I like the holes in the story. I don't need a next time on Star Wars moment. I think it'll be fine either way. I'm not going to get all up in arms if they do end up just cutting right back to the mountaintop with Luke and Rey, but I'd really like it a lot more if, some of that was just kind of pushed forward. I don't really need to see the whole, training session with Rey. Obviously she is coming into her Force ability on her own, and we see that in the first movie. We don't really need to see another training session between, Master and Padawan. I think that's one of the better things that in the prequel trilogy. I like that a lot. Because where you have Luke training with Yoda and doing the whole thing there, and you see that he's struggling, they kind of skip that in the prequels, and Anakin kind of jumps in time from episode to episode, and his abilities have obviously grown, but you don't necessarily see those trainings. I think that's beneficial to the story, because I don't really see how the things that they're doing matters all that much when they could be showing us something more exciting or more important instead with the screen time.
I think that it's just going to be, time has passed. They'll be in the same location maybe. Rey has been training for a while, but they'll open and it's going to be Luke's going to be it's time to go back or something like that. I don't think if they'll take it from right off the bat. Although that stare from Mark Hamill in that teaser was really, really grave, It
was. Yeah, I don't know. The teaser was what it was. It did push me to publish a piece that I was kind of hoping to sit on for another couple days, because in it I had talked about how I thought the next movie was going to start off, and that when that teaser launched and everybody started contemplating about exactly how that was going to happen, I was like, well, I guess I have to get this out there now that it's topical. So I published that the other day. Did you actually get a chance to read that, Mike?
I did.
Okay, so what I'm talking about here is this piece that I wrote on my blog about what actually mattered in the lightsaber handoff at the end of that movie. and why that was significant. I think people are pretty preoccupied with the look that Luke is giving Rey, rather than like the significance of what the lightsaber being handed to him means. And I talked about a couple of things that I thought it meant. 3 things specifically. I think that handing Anakin's lightsaber to Luke signifies that the Resistance needs their warrior back. Like Luke has always been like their go-to guy, and sort of like maybe their spiritual leader, if not their military one. So they need their warrior back, somebody to lead the charge to defeat the First Order. It also signifies that his father's dark legacy, needs to be put aside yet again, or tampered down, because obviously Kylo Ren is taking a lot from his grandfather's legacy, and that's dangerous. And also that Rey needs a teacher. Like that's the obvious one, but I think the lightsaber handoff itself means a lot more than the look. You know what I mean? What do you think about that?
I don't know what to think about it. Talk to me about it for a second. People are putting stock into the look as opposed to the lightsaber handoff.
Yeah, people are drawing all sorts of meaning from the way that Luke is looking at Rey, like when he turns around, and they're like, oh, he recognizes her. Oh, he knows who she is. Or, they're putting so much of it into this look that it really doesn't say anything.
So you're thinking that the lightsaber handoff is why he's giving her the look. Am I wrong?
Not necessarily. I'm not focused on the look as much as other people are, and I don't think that the look itself is actually that important. I think everybody's looking to that look for clues, trying to figure out, what Luke is going to do next, what Rey's origins are. People are using that as the basis for all these conversations, but what they're missing in that scene is everything that lightsaber stands for. Like that lightsaber has been through so much. It's Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber. It saw the rise and the fall of the Empire, and in all of the terrible, terrible things that happened in both of those times. That lightsaber itself says way more than any look could give or any amount of words could say. So I think what we should be looking at, instead of the look that Luke is giving Rey, is this lightsaber and what her offering that to Luke actually means.
Well, in that case, I agree totally with you that the lightsaber is being overlooked, because I think that is really important what you point out. But I will admit that the look that he's giving her and the disbelief on his face is what totally overshadowed everything. It overshadowed everything to me in that scene. So I agree with you. Yes, we should definitely be considering that lightsaber as kind of the focal point of the scene, even though the camera hangs on Luke's face for a good portion of it.
And we'll see. I mean, all of this is just speculation and everything, and we'll see. Maybe the look will end up meaning a little more than we think it does when we actually see Episode 8. But it's fun to think about.
Yeah, there's a little taste. There's a lot more to come. I mean, hopefully we'll be seeing a teaser for this come the end of this year. A full-on teaser. Yeah,
that'd be great. Maybe attached. Well, I don't know.
You're thinking Rogue One?
I'm thinking it's something attached to Rogue One, but honestly, I don't know if they'll have everything done in time. That'd be a pretty quick.
That'd be a Yoda right in Luke's back,
I just think I don't know. I think that Disney would do well to get on the cycle where with each new Star Wars movie they have something attached to it, like a trailer for the next one, sort of, like the Marvel cycle. But at the same time, that's some pretty quick turnaround. I guess we'll find out. Rogue One's coming up pretty soon, so I don't know if they just started production on Episode 8 now. Do you think they'll have something ready for later this year?
Yes, they will have a teaser ready.
All right.
Nothing more, something similar to what we saw when we first saw Kylo Ren's crossguard and Ignite itself.
Yeah. I always forget just how many teasers they put out for Episode 7, but then again, that was Episode 7. This is the first Star Wars movie in over a decade, so I don't know. It's just so weird to, I don't know if I'll ever grow accustomed to just how frequently we're going to get new Star Wars stuff, It's very strange.
If it's quality, I think we'll be able to handle it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Mike, let's move on a little bit. We got a little bit more follow-up to get through.
That's not even what we're talking about tonight. Wow.
Yeah, we've got a little ways to go, so let's keep pushing.
Okay.
Okay, so this week in Bantha Fodder news, we we popped our heads into both Instagram and Facebook, if you guys are into that. Instagram, I think, will be kind of fun. I'm posting some pictures on there that we may, link to in like the show notes and some behind the scenes sort of things. It won't be a whole lot, but just kind of stuff that's on topic and kind of follow along. And then we're on Facebook as well. I'm not a huge Facebook user. I don't think you really use it too much either, Mike, but, it's another place to be. And if that's, something more convenient for you to follow along with, we'll be posting links to all of our episodes there. So you can catch up with us wherever you happen to be on social media. So another big news, Bantha Fodder was included in the new and noteworthy section on iTunes this week.
That feels like a great accomplishment. Is it actually a great accomplishment?
It is and it isn't.
Okay.
The new and noteworthy section on the iTunes podcast charts, they're pretty big and they include a lot of shows. And I think basically if you get like enough reviews and enough downloads, they kind of like include you there. We were pretty far down in like the overall list, but we were definitely like one of the first Star Wars podcasts in the new and noteworthy section. We had some of our other friends in there as well, which is cool, but in like the film and TV category of the store, I think we were like in the top 20, so that's definitely a good thing. And last I looked, we actually went up a couple spots, so that's awesome. It's not like a huge deal or anything. It's not like we're featured on the front page, but it's definitely cool to kind of see that, things are catching on a little bit. It means we're getting some more reviews and we're getting some more downloads.
Nice. That felt really good when you sent me that screenshot. I was very, very pleased.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The screenshot he's talking about was this email that we got, and this is what actually alerted me to it, because I don't like check the new and noteworthy section that often, but we got an email, which I think was a forum email from some company that does like podcast editing, and basically they were just like, hey, congratulations on getting the new and noteworthy section. Just wanted to say, good job on that, and then I wanted to see if you had any podcast editing needs, and I sent you the screenshot of that and replied, and I was basically like, hey, thanks so much for the email and, letting us know about the new noteworthy section. Mike does all of our editing, and it's kind of an important part of the show, so thanks, but no thanks.
They have definitely never listened to this show.
They definitely haven't, no, and that's fine. But, it's cool to get solicited for that.
For sure. Even if spam in my inbox, it's spam because we were on the new and noteworthy section, and that means a lot.
That means so much. So yeah, I guess we just have to put a thank you out there for everybody who's been putting in reviews and leaving the ratings. So far, we're still at 5 stars, going strong. So we can't complain much about that. We got a little shout out on the Idiots Array podcast last week. They said thank you for leaving a review on their show page on iTunes, and we're happy to do that for our fellow podcasters as well. It's just a big community of support. So
one big happy family.
Absolutely. And the community is growing. Like, just looking through that list, like there are more and more Star Wars podcasts just coming out of the woodwork. So it's cool to see people getting involved, and it's cool to see that we're going to start getting some recognition here, because there is actually a dedicated group putting together a Star Wars podcasting awards.
Is there? That is such a interesting award.
This will be no secret for anybody who has been following us on Twitter, because we've been posting links about it, and a lot of other podcasts have been vying for nominations as well. The nomination period ended yesterday or the day before, so that's all closed. But we've had some people reaching out and said that they included us in their lists, and that's great. And we'll see kind of what happens from there. But how do you feel about like an awards ceremony of sorts for the Star Wars podcast?
I think it is an oddly specific award thing,
Yeah, it is.
I guess there are a lot of Star Wars podcasts, so you got to find a way to separate them out. And
that's true.
I always get skeptical with these award things, because you never know how much of a popularity contest they're going to be. And
yeah,
is this like is the Academy voting on this?
Yeah, it's definitely weird, and they haven't said a whole lot about it. The nominations went up, and I gave them some suggestions on how to maybe rephrase some of the language used in their nomination surveys a little better, because they're basically asking people to list 3 or more podcasts in certain nomination slots for different categories, and for a lot of people, myself included, it's pretty hard to think of 3 Star Wars podcasts that fit into each of those categories. Most people probably listen to 2 or 3 on average if they listen to any at all, and then like maybe 5 max. Like, I can't imagine too many people are listening to dozens and dozens of shows that would match these criteria.
Who's orchestrating it?
That's a great question. Some people that I know they're like somewhere within the community. They may be from, I don't think they're from the Cantina cast, but they may be tied in with the Coffee with Kenobi guys. So I don't think there's going to be any favoritism involved. When I tweeted something about what you said earlier, hoping that I just hope the selection is kind of vast. I really hope that it didn't get caught up in this like one clique of the Star Wars podcasting universe. Like there are definitely some tight knit groups here already. It would be a shame if all of the nominations were of a particular group, because there are definitely some very interesting Star Wars shows that are sort of out there. They're not necessarily tied in with the bigger groups like the Making Star Wars or the Cantina cast or like any of those awesome shows. They are very independent, more or less like our own. There's shows like Unmistakably Star Wars, which I started listening to the other day, which is really, really cool, but they're very much like their own self-contained thing. So I hope that more and more shows like that kind of get involved and maybe nominated, and hopefully they'll win a couple of awards too, because it's all about kind of spreading the love out there and finding the best shows, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's about that. We won't really know what more is going to come of that until they count up all the nominations and then announce what they're going to do for votes. So more on that in the future. In the meantime, Mike, in the notes you say that you have a big announcement.
I do have a big announcement. I, Michael Nicholas Comite, have watched Star Wars by myself.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You did it.
I watched A New Hope in direct preparation for tonight's episode.
Mike, it's been 29 days since I issued you the challenge, and you finally come through. So what made you decide that now was the time to do it on your own?
Mostly because I couldn't get the MKV file of this Star Wars edit onto a flash drive that I could watch with my roommate. So, it was kind of by default in that case. I absolutely would have watched it with somebody else and then teased you about it later, but I only did it because I had no other choice. I'm just being honest here, all right? But I did it. The important thing is that I did it, okay?
You did do it. And the counter has stopped.
Yeah,
29 days later, the counter has stopped. So congratulations, Mike. You've done it. You've pleased me very, very much.
Hey, I do what I can just for you. Everything I do it for you.
Oh, so how was the experience? Like, we'll get to what you were watching later, and I think anybody who has experience with our show topic might actually know what it is that you're talking about already. But just from the point where you're watching A New Hope by yourself, how is that experience, having done it for the very first time?
I watched it so much more intently than I've ever watched it before, at least at the beginning.
Okay.
I think up until they were taken in by the tractor beam and brought onto the Death Star, I was just, just looking at every shot and kind of seeing things I'd never seen before. It definitely was an experience, and it actually, by the end of it, I wanted to continue. I wanted to watch Empire, and even like I would go back and watch the prequels again by myself, because now it's something else to do. I would definitely machete order it, maybe toss in some other versions of the film, of the prequels in there in place of the originals, just because it's something new and different,
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing, is that I guess the whole premise of me rewatching this movie was almost like watching it for the first time, because our episode topic for the day is fan edits.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and so I mean, maybe one way that I reconciled watching this by myself was that I was seeing something for the first time, sort of. This was me watching Star Wars in a way that I don't believe I've seen it before.
Yeah, this is. I'm pretty sure this would be a first for you, unless you had accidentally seen it somewhere else, played by a friend. Like this is an easy thing to come across, as you found out when I was telling you about it the other day.
Yeah.
All right, so like Mike said, we're talking about fan edits tonight, and this is something that I really enjoy, because a few years ago I came across this thing called the Despecialized Edition, and I think a lot of Star Wars fans have heard about this by now. It's really caught on. A lot of mainstream media has actually talked about this, and we're going to talk about it as well. I think we're going to get to that a little bit later, but fan edits are are definitely an interesting thing. And I think coupled with our show topic from 2 weeks ago, this could really kind of change up the way that maybe some of our listeners watch the Star Wars trilogy from here on out. Like they may toss a couple of these in there instead of their DVDs, and maybe they'll watch it in a different order and get something new. So before we get into the whole fan edit atmosphere, I really want to touch on this one thing that I found while I was doing my research, and that's Team Negative One's 35 millimeter restoration of Star Wars. And this isn't really a fan edit; it's more a true restoration. Just in its own, I think it's a really interesting thing to kind of mention, because it's. I don't think we'll ever bring this up again, and I think it kind of fits in with this, even though it's not a true like fan edit itself. What this is actually this team of people, led primarily by one guy. I'm not sure he ever gave his name. He came across a 35 millimeter version of Star Wars, and basically
You just come across one of those things?
Yeah, I don't know where he got it. I'm a little unprepared in this just because I kind of found it as I was going. But he's been working on this for years, like years and years and years. And he came across this film reel, and he scanned in frame by frame every single frame of Star Wars: A New Hope. And the work he's done is absolutely amazing, because he's gone in and not only has he removed like all of the grain and the dust and the imperfections from the film itself, he's gone a long way to do color restoration and kind of enhance the film just based on some kind of film techniques that he picked up as he went. Starting this, he had very little know-how as far as video editing went, so he kind of learned a lot on the go. And it's kind of crazy, because let's see, he had some statistics in here. He said, he says, nevertheless, we plugged away day after day, week after week, cleaning frame after frame after frame. Personally, I found that it took me about 1 minute to clean each frame, sometimes longer. So I might work on it for an hour, believing that I have surely cleaned about 10 minutes worth of film, only to find that I barely cleaned 3 seconds.
That's insane.
That is absolutely insane. So he says he did this like 60 to 90 minutes a day, because he has a family and a full-time job, but it's crazy. So he's been working on this for years, and it's finally done. And I haven't found the a download link for myself. I plan on looking that up at some point, but looks really cool. Like it's really clean. It's really interesting to look at. So not necessarily a fan edit, but definitely a cool restoration.
It is a fan project, and I commend that person, whoever he is, because wow.
Such dedication.
Wow.
Let me define fan edit for you. Just for those who might be confused as to why this restoration of the 35 millimeter film wouldn't necessarily be included, because a fan edit is defined by Wikipedia as a version of a film modified by a viewer that removes, reorders, or adds material in order to create a new interpretation of the source material. So instead of like actually just basically cleaning up what's already there, like Team Negative One did for this restoration, a fan edit is actually either taking out or reordering or injecting material into the work that makes it different and sort of provides a new way of looking at the original work. So there are countless fan edits for Star Wars. I'm pretty confident in saying that Star Wars as a saga probably has the most fan edits out of any sort of movie. There are others, like I've seen fan edits for like Harry Potter and M. Night Shyamalan movies and stuff like that, but Star Wars seems to be the most prevalent. And there's all sorts of people doing this. There are people that are come from film backgrounds. There are people that are basically just hanging out with spare time and probably like a pirated copy of Premiere Pro. So anybody can make a fan edit, and a lot of people do. And originaltrilogy.net, it seems to be the place where a lot of these people kind of hang out, and they share their work and get feedback and find more people that can help them. I have links here in the show notes for original trilogy forums for both fan preservations like Team Negative One's, and then a forum for fan edits like the ones that we're going to be talking about tonight. I have another list of fan edits from another website as well. So you can kind of dig through and find ones that you find interesting. But I pulled out a couple that I think are notable. And we won't go real long on a lot of them because I want to save as much of the time that we have tonight as possible for Harvey's despecialized edits, which happen to be my favorite. But, there are a lot of different kinds. But before we start, Mike, do you have any glaring questions or anything that I can address to help you understand exactly maybe why fan edits exist or how they're made?
I guess I'm not too confused by fan edits. I know from my experience with a movie like Final Fantasy Advent Children, I know the entire Final Fantasy series definitely has a devoted fan base. And I since watching Advent Children for the first time, I've seen fan subtitles, I guess, come up, and those being a more authentic translation of the Japanese dialogue.
Oh yeah.
So I'm definitely aware that there are certain interpretations of fan edits in terms of it being truer to what the fan base wants out of it, or maybe truer to its original purpose or intent. But I get it. I get it. Is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, cool.
What makes a person want to do it? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the motivations either. I think basically it's the same as anybody who actually wants to watch it for themselves. And I think a lot of the people who are creating these fan edits are making them because they want to watch it differently. In a lot of cases, you're going to find that a lot of these fan edits are actually edits of the prequels. Obviously, those are because they have more perceived faults in them.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think people make fan edits because they're dissatisfied with the way that their creators made them?
Absolutely. Or they just think that they're fine, but they could be better in some way, or maybe just more concise.
Yeah, that's an interesting way, because it almost says to me the editors, the fan editors are saying, I can do this better than you can.
Yeah, and maybe not, because they are working with, what's there. It's not like they're going out and they're refilming these movies themselves. They're using the existing movies as sort of their workbook. That's where everything for these projects actually comes from, because they're taking from and removing elements of these films that are already made. So let me go through a couple of them.
Sure.
One of the first ones that I thought was really cool, and I hadn't heard about until I was doing some research on it this week, was this one called Clone Wars Episode 1, Rise of the Separatists by Q2. This edit is kind of neat because it's not about the movies. It's actually the Clone Wars TV series. And what he's done is he's made a trilogy of movies, starting with this Episode 1, Rise of the Separatists, where he combines and sort of edits out the cruff, but keeps the main parts of the Clone Wars series. And he essentially makes a trilogy of films based on this television show that bridges the gap between Episodes 1 and 2.
All right. So it's a mini trilogy. It's a trilogy. So I guess you could call it a fourth trilogy.
Yeah, it's a trilogy within the original, within the prequel trilogy, rather. So, I love the Clone Wars, and I know that you've been watching it and you really enjoy it as well. I think it's really great TV and some of the best storytelling that we have had in Star Wars thus far. So, kind of seeing that in maybe a more refined tone that takes out some of the more Cartoon Network children's show elements out of it. And
yeah, I can definitely see the need for it at some points.
Yeah.
There's certain Jar Jar episodes that I
think he excludes those.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I wanted to fast forward through those.
Yeah, I think that's neat. I might look this up and try watching it. I'm not sure if he's done with episodes 2 and 3, and I know there are other Clone Wars edits that you could look at instead, but this just happened to be one of the first ones that I found that seemed to be well received. But that was one of the first ones. The next one is one that we've mentioned in the show before, but I actually guess I didn't know that much about. That's Topher Grace's episode 3.5, The Editor Strikes Back.
I think I heard about this in Rolling Stone when it first came out. You remember?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I thought that this was out. I thought this was something that people could watch.
No, this was, when I read about it years ago, it was something he did a private screening of in his home or something like that, or some small space he rented. He screened the Topher Grace edit, or whatever he's calling it,
See, maybe then I'm getting schooled this episode, because that's something I just found out this week. I thought that this was already out there. I thought that this existed and was available somewhere in the far reaches of the internet.
Not as far as I know, no.
Apparently it's not. And apparently he has no plans to release it, but he did do the private screening and he put a trailer out there. But I think most importantly, he put the idea out there that the entire prequel trilogy could be condensed into one film. And this is something that a bunch of other fan editors have actually been taking upon themselves and doing. So if you go to some of the links that I've posted here, like originaltrilogy.net, you can find other fan edits that are very similar.
I kind of challenge that idea, though, of all the prequel trilogy movies getting put into one film.
Why is that?
I don't know. It kind of strikes me as a sort of boyhood thing where, you watch this character aging throughout the course of the movie. And I don't know. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it just seems like it might not work to me. It might seem a little forced.
Yeah, I have no idea what that would be like. But I would be willing to watch it if it were available. And I'm gonna try to find one that maybe compares to what Topher Grace was able to put together. But there are other ones as well. If you want to watch like the full movies, but maybe you want to remove some of the silliness, there are options for that as well. I found this one, and it seems to be one of the more popular prequel edits that are out there. And these are actually all, self-contained movies in themselves. So you still have episodes 1, 2, and 3. But what they do is this guy, whose name is Jeremy M. West Esquire, he posted these on YouTube, and they've been pulled down for now. But you can obviously find them somewhere online if you're really interested. What he does is he removes all the stuff from the prequel movies that, let's be honest, that suck. Like, so you're taking out all the cheeseball moments with Anakin and Padme. They take out all the stuff about the midichlorians because, you don't really need it. As interesting as some might find it, myself included, you don't really need it for the story. So I think basically the idea here is just getting down to the root of it, more or less, the basic essence of the machete order, like you were mentioning in a couple episodes ago. But what I think is really cool, and one of the smaller nuances of this that I think might be understated, is his attention to some of the alien languages from the prequels that were like sort of like quasi-English. We're talking about like, the Trade Federation cronies dudes and their weird language that just, come on, it's just weird. And then the Gungans, which is sort of silly. What he actually does with this is he garbles them further and makes them completely unintelligible. I don't know if he's actually re-recording these or if he's just doing something with the audio to make it sound foreign and alien. But he's actually completely garbling these and then giving each character subtitles that actually make sense. So no more like Misa thinks or Okie days. You're getting very plain English from Jar Jar Binks. So the little amount of Jar Jar that you're actually getting in this movie is way better because he's not he's still an idiot, but he doesn't talk like one.
Wow, that would put a new spin. It could save Jar Jar. I don't know if it could actually, because he still eats the apple with the tongue and the electricity. Oh god,
yeah,
I'm getting upset.
I don't think there's any saving Jar Jar, and I'm sure that a bunch of those scenes are the ones that get edited out because I know that with episode 1, which was originally over 2 hours, he edited it down to 90 minutes. So you took out at least a half hour to 45 minutes from the movie, and I'm sure some of that had to be Jar Jar Binks. Actually, yeah, it's listed here. They removed the entire underwater city scene, so no more Gungan village. They just skipped that and then went straight to catch up with the Queen. The
marginalization of alien species strikes again. Classic Star Wars theme.
Yeah, well, I guess it persists in the editor's room as well, or at least these fan editors. So, like I said, this particular edit seems really interesting to me. It's one of the ones that I kind of want to try out for myself once I track it down because it was removed from YouTube by Lucasfilm, and you might be able to find it somewhere on YouTube again. I know that he's uploaded it 1 or 2 more times since then, but you know how these things work. They're up, and then Lucasfilm catches wind of it again, and then it's down. So it's available for download, but it's not necessarily easy to get to. And that method that for this one is the same as what I think our main topic for the evening is going to be is Harmy's despecialized editions, which are notoriously interesting in the way that they're put together and in the quality of the production, but also in how difficult it is to actually procure copies of these.
This is the one I watched last night, right?
Yeah.
I guess the biggest question I had in procuring this is why the hell is it 17.5 gigabytes? That is the biggest file I've ever had on my computer at one time. Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's really, really difficult to move those files around because a lot of computing systems and operating systems will actually limit you from moving files of a certain file size, usually.
FAT32.
It's kind of hard to move these. So wherever you decide to download these to, if you do happen to find a copy of it, make sure you choose the location properly. So choose the right hard drive the first time, and you won't have any problems. But yeah, it's a massive file, and there's reason for that, and there's reason why it's really hard to track down. Like this project is kind of massive, and this guy who goes by Harvey online, he's been working on this project for years, and what's included is his editions of episodes 4, 5, and 6, and they're all despecialized. And what that means, as far as his definitions go, is that this is the way that the movies are intended to be watched. These are like the originally released formats before George Lucas came back in with the special editions and changed the dialogue and added things in and removed things, and like just his incessant tweaks to the films that so many people are angry about, like the unnecessary additions and alterations to the original trilogy that just aren't necessary. You don't need them. Like the movies are great on their own, and that's what Harvey is trying to get back to. So what he's been doing for years and years is collecting up sources of video, and these are, the Blu-ray releases and the special editions and various foreign copies of the film, from 35 millimeters all the way, up through the Blu-ray releases. Any kind of format that you can think of that Star Wars has been released on, he has been looking and poring over, trying to find the best quality shots for every scene in the movie without alterations. And in the ones where there is no copy available in a high enough format for him to include in his release, he painstakingly goes frame by frame and removes those elements. It's insane.
That is crazy. That's crazier than the guy who polishes the 35 millimeter. Oh my god!
And this guy works at an amazing speed. And I know by now he has a pretty trusty team of people that are like helping with this. I'm not entirely sure what all their methods are, but it's incredible the amount of work that they've gone through. They've not only collected like original sources and like very rare copies of the film to make this possible. Like they have the original color grading down to a T. So all of the lighting and all of the coloration that you see is as close to the like original theatrical viewing of these movies as they can possibly find. And they released episodes 4, 5, and 6 in like a 1.0 release over the past few years, and just recently he's been getting through the 2.5 releases for all of these as well. So it's just improvements on what he's already done, replacing shots with better sources as they become available, and using higher encoding and color correction techniques that he and his team have been learning over the years. It's fantastic. And the reason that the file size is so big, Mike, is because, obviously the video itself is pretty large, and you can download this in like MKV formats and even formats for a Blu-ray disc. You can actually download these movies in a video TS folder that you can actually burn onto a Blu-ray disc and add to your shelf collection. They even have like artwork to go in the sleeve and everything. It's really cool. So the file size is big because you have this monstrous video file. Like it's super high quality. Right now, I believe everything is in 720p, which is pretty great considering that this is like a movie that was released in the 70s and not released by Disney or Lucasfilm themselves. Like you can get the Blu-ray releases, but that has more edits than anything else. So this is by far and away the best way to watch Star Wars. It's high definition. It's the original form. Like this is the original way that people saw the movie in theaters. And
is that true? That was the question I had when I was watching it. I obviously was not in a theater, but it was what I was seeing on my 15-inch laptop screen. Was that as close to I'll ever get as what people experienced in 1977 when they watched that film?
Until Disney puts out the unaltered original trilogy on Blu-ray, yes.
Wow. Okay. But you're saying that some of the footage in the movie I watched, episode 4, was despecialized in the sense that he's removed some stuff.
Yeah, I'm not, I can't tell you like shot for shot exactly what he did. He has a ton of documentation on this. I'll put some links down here. I can't give links to where you can download this.
That's illegal.
But it's not incredibly hard to find if you follow the clues. You can find a lot from his Facebook page, and he has links on there to galleries where he has before and after clips from source to version 1.0 to 2.5, and it's kind of amazing just to see the improvement in quality over time. And some shots end up getting a little darker because that ends up being a little closer to the way that it was originally shown. Like he's striving for perfection here, and while it's hard for a lot of people to exactly say, how it was originally, he's using very old sources, and it really as close as you can get to what was shown in the actual theaters. And in some cases, I think he probably has copies of those reels, but it's incredible. As far as most Star Wars purists go, this is the only way that they'll watch it. And after I discovered it, version 1.0 of all 3 copies was the only way that I decided that I wanted to watch it until I actually downloaded and watched version 2.5 of A New Hope today as well. So I just watched what you watched last night. So I was blown away by it. And, I've been watching it more or less in this format for years, but just the improvement on the last version is phenomenal.
I had such a great time watching it. It was so much less jarring. The Mos Eisley scenes were so much more coherent. Without a CG character, without a CG land speeder kind of like floating through, like not seeing those CG dewbacks.
The dewbacks. That's what really got me when I saw a shot of the special edition for the first time. I think on a YouTube video. I was like, "What on earth is that? I've never seen that before." It just didn't seem right.
Even on the final assault on the Death Star, when the ships are taking off, there's weird like specks of light that kind of shoot off into the sky at this speed that doesn't make any sense at all. It was just so much better though than watching a bunch of CG craft take off and not seeing a whole swarm of X-wing and Y-wing in the sky like off of Yavin on the way to the Death Star trench. Like it made so much more sense in Harmy's version.
It's just more authentic, It seems so much more authentic, and I think like the original coloring and like the scratches and everything that you see on the droids and on Darth Vader's mask, like some of that just you don't see that quite as much in the newer edits because everything's kind of polished over and brightened and color corrected in a way that makes it look better according to George Lucas and his team. Like this just makes it feel much more used and lived in, and from a film production standpoint, it feels more vintage, and I like that. Like that's why I like Star Wars. Like I like it for everything that it was. And I was watching the VHS copies as a kid. Like at that point, that was the closest thing that you could get, and we've just been getting further and further away from that as time goes on. Like with all of the new editions that he's been releasing and everything, like there's just so much crap that gets added to these films over time. And until Disney puts out those Blu-rays, which is rumored to be happening within the next couple of years, like Harmy is a saint among men. I have undying gratitude for this poor anonymous gentleman who will never get any legitimate credit, but it's just amazing the amount of work that he's put into this really cool format for these films. Watching
the Harmy edition just really gives you a chance to appreciate the film and the actors. Like I don't know, maybe I was really just trying to distinguish the whole time whether my brain was just romanticizing how much I love A New Hope and the feelings I get when I watch that, between like how much I was appreciating Harmy's edit. I don't know. Luke just seemed so much more vivid when, his facial expressions were just there. And I don't know. I was just watching him so much more intently. And like, I was just checking out Alec Guinness's looks when they're helping Luke up after the Tusken Raiders grab him. I don't know. It does seem different.
in a way that you it's hard to say, isn't it? It's like it's hard to really put a finger on why it's so much different.
I think that's because of the conflict between, romanticism and what is actually being shown on the screen. But what I really think the Harmy edits highlight is kind of where George Lucas was at in like the late 90s and what he wanted. Like you see that George Lucas wanted something that looked really crazy, and like he wanted the speeder to kind of like wobble a little bit in that direction, and he wanted like the dewbacks to be more. He wanted like a bunch of dewbacks, and that's what he wanted. But the CG technology just wasn't there, or and you kind of see what was important to him later on. Like he felt like Star Wars was unfinished, and we strongly disagree.
Right.
Like.
Yeah,
that's really what watching it did for me.
Yeah, I think George Lucas is always going to struggle with the difference between his creative work and the audience to that work. They always seem to be at odds, and that's why there are documentaries called "The People vs. George Lucas." Like, it's so it just seemed impossible for him to let go of the trilogy, even when he sold it. He's always made comments about what's coming now, and with the new movie he made comments to the effect this is what the fans have wanted, but he's saying it in a sort of glib way where it's like, well, you were never satisfied with what I gave you, even though it's what I think was right, so maybe now you're getting what you wanted. It's sad. I think it's kind of sad. But
it's a strong illustration of the idea that a work of art is never finished, just abandoned, and Lucas could never abandon.
He never moved on.
I'm sure that's been said a million times in a million different Star Wars podcasts and TV shows or whatever. But yeah, I really feel strongly about that. That what Harmy gave us was if Star Wars was abandoned in a good way.
Yeah.
And what Lucas gave you was just somebody who couldn't let go.
Yeah, what Harmy does at the heart of it, it's like he's taking something that was really great in its original form. But he's modernizing it in a way that is completely agreeable with anybody who wants to watch the films now. I don't think anybody's going to complain if Disney comes out with 4K versions of Star Wars: A New Hope. I don't think anybody in the world could possibly complain about that, as long as it's the original takes and there are no CGI monsters added. There's no changes to the dialogue that people have been quoting and remembering for so many years. That's what we want. We just want our Star Wars movies, and we want to watch them in the coolest, most high definition way possible, because we just want to be blown away with the filmmaking that we fell in love with at the start. So, Harmy, thank you. If you are listening to this, thank you. So, Mike, now that you've seen a Star Wars movie on your own, and it just so happened to be a Harmy edit, is that something that you're going to continue to do? If I sent you links to maybe Harmy's other original trilogy edits, would you watch those?
Yeah, I would never watch it another way if I had the choice. I mean, that's kind of what I left the movie feeling. Why would I ever watch anything besides a despecialized edition? It just... Yeah. Anything else would seem tainted at this point. Such a huge appreciation for the film that way.
I'm so glad you feel that way. I think it's a really great way to introduce people to the films. We've talked about that before, and that seems to be a recurring theme for us, and maybe something we'll be able to talk about a little more fully, is introducing people to the Star Wars movies. And I think that this just might be the best way to do it, because this is the reason why people love the films, and this is how my girlfriend came to love the films. I showed these to her for her first viewings as a Star Wars movie ever, and she's like, "Wow, these are great." And I think if I were to show her maybe the VHS copies that I had, she wouldn't have felt the same, because those are dated, and the quality is bad, and you're watching it on tape, and there's a lot of grain and just stuff that happens over time. But these are well preserved and expertly edited versions of the movies that are very easy to watch and make it very true to what it is that the original movies actually gave people.
I eagerly anticipate watching by myself episodes 5 and 6 for sure.
I love hearing that.
Maybe we could come up with some ideal viewing order, combining the machete order with these fan edits.
Interesting.
Yeah, so like we have our Harmies, obviously,
Right.
but then we find some way to work in episodes 2 and 3 or the crucial information in some type of machete order, like where most of episode 1 gets put aside. But yeah, I think that that'd be kind of a cool. I mean, maybe somebody's done it. Maybe somebody's already compiled the best fan edits. It'd be very subjective, that's for sure.
It's entirely possible. Well, that's something to look into. I haven't downloaded any of those prequel edits yet, but that's something I'm kind of interested in. I think I'm going to check that out. And if I find any good ones, maybe I'll come back and do a bit of follow up with the best way to go about that. But we'll see.
We'll see.
All right, Mike. Well, I think that's the end of episode 5. I feel pretty good about it. How about you?
I feel like it's as strong as the ending of any episode 5 in any Star Wars series.
And as you say, episode 5 is the best, and I don't think anybody could argue with that.
That's true. So if we missed any fan edits, if you have any recommendations on which ones to check out, hit us up on the Twitter at Bantha Fodder FM.
Yeah, or you can find us individually at Mike Commentate or at Curbside Audio. We'll have links to all that in the show notes, and you can find those show notes at banthafodder.fm/episode/5. If you get a sec, hit us up on iTunes and leave us another review and some stars. We'll see if we can keep pushing our way up the new Noteworthy chart, and share it with a friend. Pick out a buddy that likes Star Wars as much as we do and share it with them. We'd love to hear their thoughts as well. But I think that's about it. You got anything else, Mike?
Nah.
All right, so until next time, bye, Mike.
All right, how much of that do you want to do again?
All of it.